Thanks very much, Ekin, and thank you. I'm Hanson Hosein, co-director of the Communication Leadership Graduate Program. And thank you to Microsoft and to our three first speakers to talk about what is at least imminent in their company in terms of what the future of work is. And it's impossible not to reference the current moment we're in as we think about the future of work, even though people might be watching this video months from now. That said, it's clear that the current crisis that we're facing around this virus that's making people think very differently about how they're going to work, maybe even normalizing a different future of work even as we speak. And some of the tools that were shared by our first three speakers really indicate where those possibilities might lie, both in terms of finding answers to solutions, in terms of networking. And I like David's very profound comment that we have to make hard choices about our values moving forward as well.
Exactly.
So I find that all very compelling and interesting, and just thinking about how we articulate the future that we want based on what those initial tools might look like. For our two guests, well, Ekin, you're not the guest, Kriti, you are. How do you feel about, even just seeing this as a preview of what our future might look like, given our current situation, what the situation might be in the future? What's your initial reaction to this?
Yeah, so before I jump into that, I just wanted to introduce myself while I'm here. So my name's Kriti Kapoor. Been in the US and Seattle area for 5 years now. And the last two roles that I've done were leading HP and Microsoft's social media teams for customer service and customer care. And what I was observing in those environments, and the transformation that I was driving as leader of those groups was on a couple of fronts. One, the adoption of messaging, right? So messaging 5 years ago was in a very different place to where messaging platforms are today. The number of channels that we have, the number of distribution channels, the adoption of messaging, even collaboration tools like Slack and Teams, et cetera. These are all a pretty recent phenomenon, right? And obviously social media and its adoption now is ubiquitous. There's over 3 billion people now that are using social networks. Again, setting context, we weren't at this place 5 years ago. That's where we are today, right? The second experience that I had while leading Microsoft's social team for support was looking at the role and power of online communities, because that's all about collaboration and how technologies enable humans and technology to work together. And what I observed there was the adoption of gig economy, but gig economy in the context of customer service and support. So again, that's like, okay, there are millions of customers that Microsoft has, for example, around the world using their platforms, using the technologies, and run into issues every single day. And usually people are going online to try and look for help, call friends, call families, and now Microsoft's customers, its best customers, are becoming their best advocates. So in fact, through gig economy, service, the nature of customer service as we know it is changing, because it's people that are using the products that are actually providing the support at scale and earning an income at the same time as well. So, you know, when I think about future of work, even how you as a consumer, as a customer, as a member of a particular community that exists, and you know, people that are listening online would be representing all kinds of brands. Those are some perspectives I think that I would offer as well as we think about where this is headed.
I think that's a really important perspective. I mean, basically you're saying things are changing very quickly. Even in the last 5 years, things that we're using now didn't exist. And that also means that culture is changing and expectations around work. I think Malavika's commentary about the fact that we do need new tools because of time, because of all the data we're being inundated with, and also because of distractions. So even the social networks you referenced, which are useful, are also distracting. And so how are we going to think differently about the culture that we need to have? Ekin, as you consider the three presentations that were made and moving forward, what excites you most about what you've seen? What maybe even concerns you a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm so excited that communication is at the core of all of these technologies, right? In some way or another, we're thinking about connection, we're thinking about communication in this really core and interesting way. So I am excited that we're constantly thinking about communication and connection, which is what we do for a living, all of us in the room in some way or form. The other thing that I wanted to think about is kind of finding expertise, which I found to be both, I think there are ways, and David gestured to in the Facebook comments, ways of finding it, but who will deem themselves as experts, right? Will we enter into a landscape, and currently it's internal, So within your companies, you'll be able to find these people who are attached to a particular term, and you engage with both people and ideas. But what if people self-deem as experts, right? Do we enter into a space of misinformation or disinformation by way of, again, because they don't know enough, right? And then they spread something that they actually are not so sure about, or that they intentionally, right, share with you knowledge that they deem to be important. So things to think about, and I'm sure David is already thinking about it in his space. But those were the two things that really came to my mind.
Well, that's a profound observation, because if the nature of expertise itself will change in terms of credentialing, and some of the political backlash we've seen against elites and experts over the last few years around the world, then that actually might be either part of the solution or, as you say, with misinformation, part of the problem. So a tool like Project Cortex, where you identify expertise differently, might actually support something that makes more sense and leverage data and expertise in a way that actually solves more of a problem than causes that problem. I think that's probably quite useful.
Exactly, and that's a great point to turn back to our conversation to hear a little bit more. For all of you watching us live, again, go on to Thought Exchange, go on to Facebook, interact with the content, reflect, use this as a learning day as we move forward. We have, again, 3 speakers lined up back to back, one of whom is in the audience, so we're going to invite her and she'll be on stage. But the first one of our speakers will be via Zoom, and I'm really excited to introduce him first, and then I'll introduce everyone in this cycle. It will be William Dew, returning home virtually, one of our alumni working on a really interesting and exciting novel, and again, communication-based emerging technology, which I think is going to be the thread today, and that was intentional, guys. So William is already available via Zoom, so I'm turning it over to William Dew, who's currently developer and community manager at Agora.io in Bay Area. So William, I'm turning it over to you right now.